now. Alright, cool. So we're recording. Uh, Let us talk about this game. You're playing. I want to know what you know about the Renekton versus Nasus matchup.
Um, I know I need to freeze it, and so I can just bully him every time he tries to go up to get minions,
Okay.
and that's what I try to do. But I end up just pushing him under tower just because of I I don't really know. Like my Q just kind of kills minions.
Yeah, it pushes the lane every time that you use it. Okay. Is there anything else that you know about this matchup as far as how you need to play it?
Um, it's I just know I need to keep him from farming. That's all I really know about it.
Okay, that's fine. Like, yeah, you don't want him to stack up his Q and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Alright. Let us talk about this game. So this is the way I like to teach League, right? Specifically, I like to explain League of Legends has 3/5, depending on how you look at it, different parts of the game, right? And then your matchup slash the game itself, right? It's affected by the champs that you pick, right? So there's early game, mid game, and late game. That's pretty basic stuff, right? The five that I was talking about earlier was like in between early and mid game. You'd have like early mid game, and between mid and late game, you'd have mid late game. And it's important to draw these distinctions for the times in the games because it allows us to do what we were talking about earlier, which is those patterns and putting you in those familiar situations so you can make consistently good decisions so that you can get ahead in games, you can close out games, stuff like that. Okay?
Okay.
So, just based on the fact that I just threw these terms at you, what do you think like early game is, early mid game, mid late game, late game? Just so I know like what you know about the subject already.
Early game is basically like just farming. Um, um, and getting some early trades in maybe.
Okay. Farming, trading, anything else?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. And then like, so what does the early game for like Renekton versus Nasus this game look like?
I win early fights because he doesn't really have any straightaway damage because his Q is pretty is doesn't have a lot of scaling.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Um,
Cool. Anything else?
Not that I can really think of.
Okay.
Maybe just keeping an eye out at 2:30 whenever junglers start ganking. That's around the normal time that junglers should be doing something.
Yeah, for sure. The 2:30 game timer. And then so what about early mid game? What does early mid game mean to you?
Um, I really don't know.
That's fine. What about mid game?
It's where a lot more objectives start coming into play, and it's team fighting starts happening more often. And laning phase should be around. It should be over by then.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
A lot more team fights, you said. All right. And so let me ask you, how does the Renekton versus Nasus matchup look at this stage in the game?
um, if I'm if I can win trades that are in and out, and I'm pretty sure that I can out trade him just overall because of my just the kit is a lot stronger, and he still doesn't have that many stacks, especially if I made him to where he can't farm up his Q.
Yeah, if you're snowballing, then you win. For sure. Renekton. Oh man. I've gotten better at writing small text. Renekton's not, like I can kind of read this. Alright, so mid late. So mid late game, that's the next one. Right? We'll do it in blue. Or not. Mid late game, what does that mean to you?
It's probably more looking towards Baron
Okay.
and trying to make either team fights that you know you're gonna win, or just trying to siege down towers.
Okay. And then how does the Renekton versus Nasus matchup look like right now? You're in the mid late game?
I mean, if you're snowballed enough, it's pretty good, especially if you have your jungler
Yeah.
there.
Like, if you snowball, you pretty much just keep this guy down the rest of the game, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I won't ask you for the next one then. And then, what about late game? What does late game mean to you?
It's where the game should start to be closing out,
Okay.
and if it's or it's just gonna be a shit show if there's a team fight,
Yeah.
and that pretty much dictates the rest of the game. Whoever wins.
Yeah. Okay. So, I guess, oh yeah. I am recording this, but are you taking notes?
Um,
Like, somewhere? Like, on a piece of paper or on, like, document or something?
I can.
Okay, yeah. I just recommend it because it's just, like, I know, like, with me, whenever I learn things, I like to write stuff down. So, like, just kind of, like, remember, like, this. I'll actually, hold up. Let me screenshot this, right?
I just screenshotted it.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect. Keep your screenshot. I'm gonna trash this, and then I am going to, I guess, give you the rundown of like, just a really basic version of what you need to know. We're gonna go more in depth and talk about them as we see them in this game, right? So basically, the game, we said, can be divided into 5 parts. Basically, it can also be divided with these nice little lines, which are the divisions within those parts. And then we'll talk about the different stages, right? So for the early game, you mentioned that it's all about like the farming and the trading and how all that goes down, right? We identify as that the laning phase. Um, it starts when the game starts. Specifically, early game is levels 1 through 5, okay?
Okay.
Uh, what I mean by this is that there's a lot of champions that change drastically once they hit level 6. A good example is Malphite, actually, right? Where like that champion, he doesn't really do anything. I think that's like the meme on Reddit, right? Where he's like, he's just there. He kind of just farms. Like if you take comment, you can like throw comments at people, right? But other than that, he's just a champion that just chills out during lane phase. Don't really look to kill anybody. But after you hit 6, right, which is what we're going to use as that transition between early and early mid game, that's where like the magic happens of early mid game, right? That's where you see the Nasus, not the Nasus, the Malphite like to go look and make plays. As with Renekton, your 2v1 potential increases tremendously, right? Because when you get your ult, you can now have like multiple empowered abilities within like a skirmish. Um, Yasuo, for example, can now start hitting 3 to 4 man knockups and like winning a team fight off them, right? Post level 6. Earlier in the it doesn't who cares if he gets like it's still good that he gets the knockup, but like it's not like wow, that was really cool. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So and so like we cut this off from mid game because of the fact that this first blue line, this division is going to be the first tower falling. What this does is this indicates the end of the lane phase, right? Um, because after first tower falls, it opens up the map and people start going to different lanes and people start making plays in other people's lanes and the way you farm is different. And that's like kind of the start of mid game, right? So anyway, in early game we did our ult. So like the goal of early game is to get as much, and you're going to need to learn this because it's going to apply to no matter what champion. Get as much gold and EXP as as you possibly can, slash the difference between you and your opponent, okay? Get as much gold, EXP, and this will be a triangle because it means delta, okay? You, you know what delta means, like, in, like, math and science?
Not really.
Okay, it's like the difference between you and... So, like, if you have 1,200 gold and he has, like, 800 gold, the gold delta is 400. Because you have a 400 gold lead on him. Does that make sense?
Alright. Yeah.
Okay. So you're trying to get, like, the biggest difference between you and him so that you can carry the game, right? obviously, if you have 1200 and he has 800, but this misfortune has 1500, right? Kind of like you described earlier, the reason you don't like playing ADC so much is because the enemy top laner will get out of hand, right? Like even if you have like a 400 gold lead on this guy, if she has more gold than you, then like your gold delta matters a little bit less. So like it's get as much gold as EXP as you possibly can, and then like worry about this delta secondary. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Because at the end of the day, you need to. You're not just against this Nasus. You're against everybody on their team, right? And so as a top laner, we're lucky in the sense that we're very isolated in the early game. The only thing that can affect us is literally the enemy jungler. In very rare exceptions, will mid laners ever affect us? And that's like when you're playing against like an Aurelion Sol or a Talon or something, right? But top laners are super isolated in the early game and typically get to choose whenever they impact the map on these stages of the game, which is the early, mid game, and the mid game, right? And so like this is what I said was like the first 15 minutes of a game that if you get really good at, you can just like that's all you have to worry about pretty much, and like you'll climb to platinum like super easily if you just focus on these stages of the game and making really good decisions during these stages of the game. Okay.
Okay.
So things that we need to worry about once again is during the laning phase we need to worry about our jungler jungle matchup and how that influences our lane, and then we need to worry about power spikes within the lane, right? To continue talking about power spikes, to continue talking about the other phases of the game, right? So we said early game is like levels 1 through 5, early mid game is like level 6 plus until you hit the first tower, right? Typically you'll have like your starting items, right? Your Doran's items. Here you'll have like, maybe you'll have like a Tiamat, right? So you'll have your components. So you'll have like your Tiamat, like in some cases you'll have like Black Cleaver finished, right, on Renekton, which is like a pretty good power spike for him because he does all physical damage, right? But right here, these are more defined by how many items champions have, right? So when you have 1 to 2 like core items like Black Cleaver and I don't know, Titanic Hydra or something, right? Like that'll be for Renekton. Like that's what your mid game is gonna look like. When you have 3 to 4 items, completed items, you'll be in like your mid game, and then when you have like 5 to 6 completed items, you'll be in late game. This matters a lot more for like when you think about it for like ADCs, right? Because ADCs is something that you might not have realized, but now you do realize they're part of the game that you really want to worry about is this part of the game, because this is when the ADCs have the most control. Okay, it's like you don't get to make a lot of choices as an ADC for the first 15 minutes of the game, but you do get to make a lot of choices after. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, as a top laner, we focus on the first 15 minutes of the game and the decisions that lead them to that, and then once we get a lead, right, like there's 3 basic outcomes as far as what happens after this line. You're either ahead, you're even, or you're behind, and based on that, we can talk about like how to look and approach the game. Okay. So we're not going to delve too much into these parts until we watch you play these parts. And so based on that, we're now going to look and learn. Actually, here, if you want to take a screenshot, you can, but it's not too important. It's just basically the different breakpoints, right? This is pretty easy to know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then levels 1 through 5 and level 6. So we're going to take a closer look at what the early mid game of the Nasus versus Renekton matchup is supposed to look like. Okay. Typically, as Nasus, you just take it brutally from the Renekton because of the fact that Renekton is a lane bully, right? So we're going to write here lane bully. What it means is that he has really strong trading. He has like an AoE spell with he has better wave clear advantage. He has better wave clear than most champions in the game, right? Because his Q is AoE, his E is AoE. He builds AD so he can push like with his auto attacks fairly well. It's not uncommon to build Tiamat on Renekton, right? So he has a very easy time pushing waves. Whereas Nasus, if he wants to push a wave, it costs a lot of mana, right? Like Nasus has his Spirit Fire, which costs like 70 mana, and the dude has 320, right? So he can use that 4 times, maybe 5 times, and then you zoom, right? Unless he builds like Doran's Ring or something. And so like that's 4 or 5 waves that he gets. He can push for 2 minutes and then he's done. Whereas Renekton, manaless champion, He doesn't have to worry about that. He also has good sustain, right? So in a in just looking at sustain, you guys are relatively evenly matched, right? Sustain v sustain, at least in the early stages of the game. Because Nasus' sustain is just from him auto attacking creeps, and if you can zone him, you have a greater sustain advantage, right? Because he doesn't get to auto attack creeps. Sustain versus sustain based on who's winning. Does that make sense? Because your sustain is tied to also getting auto attacks, but getting your Q off multiple times, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I like mentioned, like you can go Taste of Blood, you can get Ravenous Hunter if that's like something that you're like can maybe think about. This game personally, like we mentioned earlier, like Essence Reaver seems really good, so I'd probably try out Ultimate Hat. Or not Ultimate Hat, what's it called? Ultimate Hunter? I don't even know the name. The one that reduces your ultimate, right, in the red tree. So
Mhm.
based on who's winning. Uh, and like we said earlier, you should be winning because you're the bully, right? So you should have better sustain than him in the early stages of the game because you're able to get your Fury up, you're able to Q and stuff, right? You have better gank setup. What I mean by that is you literally have a stun in your kit and you have a dash to use it. And then this is when we get to bring out the wonderful, cool part about top lane that a lot of people don't think about. Do you ever do you watch a Shinshin? Do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Shinshin's like a really, I guess like he's a pretty popular top lane player. He plays in like master tier, and he like post videos on like Reddit and YouTube, talking about like how he hates top lane because of X and Y and stuff like that. And right, and he ended up being like this poster child for like really bad top laners. Um, the reason why is because the dude absolutely just like refuses to learn how to play around junglers, right? And so there's this player that's really bad at something, but he still ends up being master tier, okay? That's just because he's really good at playing like Jax and Kled and stuff like that. Like he's really mechanically good at those champions, okay? But what he's really bad at is what I'm about to tell you is that top lane is not a 1v1. Not 1v1. What I mean by that is that it's a dance between you and your jungler and them and their jungler, okay? Like if this Yi had it set out to gank you and make sure that this Nasus did not lose lane, he could totally do that, right? Like he could do some path like cheese your red buff and then just gank you level 2 and then you lose like 400 HP on the first gank maybe and it's just like, okay, I guess I don't get to play the game, you know? Um, like that, you can totally do that, and you have a hard time because of it. But the wonderful thing is we also have a jungler, and so now let me ask you this. How do you think Renekton and Udyr would do versus a Nasus and Master Yi in the early stages of the game?
I probably should be careful about the E, just because the NASA's slow, and it can set up for the E pretty well.
Yeah, yeah, but Renekton and Udyr versus Nasus
Oh,
Yi.
Udyr.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Udyr can definitely outtrade a Yi with my help,
Oh yeah.
since in the early game, Nasus can't really do anything.
You guys should rock their socks off. It's
Yeah,
not even close. Like Udyr is a really high damage early game jungler, right? Because he like stuns someone and then he just like eats their face off with Tiger Form. If he goes Phoenix, like that's kind of unlucky, but like nobody goes Phoenix anymore. Um, and if he does, like it's still like comparable damage early game, right? And then you also have a stun, so like it should not even be close. Since they don't have any hard CC, like they should not be looking to 2v2 you guys top, right? So the one of the things we're gonna add is we have a under that gank setup is we have winning 2v2. This is not always going to be the case, right? But it's something that you need to think about because it does change the way that you play, right? You should be more willing to take fights around your Udyr than if he were another champion, right? Because of the fact that you guys win this 2v2 so heavily. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Okay, cool. And then other things that we can mention about this Renekton matchup, right? We said we have the wave clear advantage, we have the sustain advantage, we have this, we have lane bully, right? What these end up meaning is we have trade advantage, right? Like we want to look for trades constantly, and it's going to be good for us. And then we have good game setup, right? So like in pretty much every single way, shape, and form, Renekton should just trash all over Nasus. It's not even close. He can kind of like trade back, right? But like we said, if you're pushing, you're gonna have the sustain advantage. So that's the early game, and then in the early mid game, right? after like a base or something, it's based on whatever lead you developed will continue to have that lead. You guys' ultimates are relatively the same, right? You both get tankier, you both get AoE damage around you. He gets like 50% reduction on his Q, big whoop. You get like Fury. So it's just based on like how tanky he can get, right? How tanky does Nasus get? And then how many stacks he has, right? For the rest of the game, past the like first base, it's just an argument of how tanky is Nasus and how many stacks does he have. Okay, how tanky Nasus gets is directly in relation to how much damage you have, right? Like if you have Black Cleaver and you have like and you're snowballed ahead of him, right? Nasus isn't that tanky compared to you, right? And how many stacks he has is how often you leave him alone and how well did you do in that lane phase to deny the CS, okay? And this is going to stick from early mid game to late game, and we're just going to keep asking ourselves this question every time we want to fight this Nasus, right? If you do some roaming plays, like that's fine, just know that it comes at the cost of this Nasus is free farming. Okay. Eventually, it does get to a point where Nasus doesn't care about you anymore. You don't do enough damage to break through him. His lifesteal is too much, and he's going to be able to kill you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's actually like really terrifying when that happens because Renekton has no comeback mechanic other than like team fighting and having a single stun, which is why we buy Essence Reaver so we can have like 3. But still, so these are going to be the questions that we're going to constantly be asking ourselves. If we snowballed correctly, then the answer is always going to be we win in the 1v1. And if we didn't snowball correctly, then that's quite unfortunate, and we got to figure out where we made mistakes. Okay. So, based on the stuff that we said earlier, we're going to talk about how you want to manage your wave. A lot of players do not even think about how to manage waves because it's just like not something that they think about. Alright, so your team started off with a team fight down there. So, we'll just look at it right here. I'll draw some lines and then I'll ask you some questions. So, you are on Team Red side, right? And so there's 3 basic directions that a minion wave, or 3 basic things a minion wave can do, right? It can push, it can pull, and it can stay, or even, right? And there's advantages and disadvantages with all 3 of these. And if you're not conscious about the way that a wave is moving, you're not going to be able to take advantage of what's happening, right? And so there are advantages and disadvantages to all 3 of these, and there's matchups. Actually, Renekton is going to want to do all 3 of these in different stages of the game and in different matchups, right? Like if you're playing versus a Teemo, you don't want to like overexpose yourself too much because you're just gonna take a bunch of damage and then you're just gonna like lose lane, right? But if you're playing versus like a Riven, for example, it's more important that you stay up in levels and stuff, right? So let me ask you this. We'll start with pushing because that's usually just like what a lot of players just do when they mindlessly play the game. Pushing, we mentioned that you have a wave clear advantage, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned also that you like to push into the Nasus and then the wave gets stuck and you don't really know what to do. So tell me what the pros are of pushing.
He can lose minions under tower.
Okay.
He's a
Keep going. Hello?
I have a lot more topside priority.
Okay, you have priority. What
because
else?
I can go down through other things.
Yep. What else?
I can't really think of anything else.
Okay, that's fine. What are the cons?
I can lose CS if it stays under tower too long. I'm more exposed to ganks if I don't have vision.
Okay.
And I don't know what else actually.
That's fine. So it's important that I like inform you on all these things because when we make the conscious, it helps us make the decision to push if we know the full list of the pros and cons. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and tell them to you. So you're right in that there's missing CS under tower. We're also going to put right here briefly deny CS, and I'll explain that later. There's a difference between missing CS and denying CS. Missing CS is what I do whenever I click the wrong minion and then the minion dies and I'm like, oh, I guess I just missed gold because I'm a bad player, right? Denying CS is something I actively do so that this Nasus can't Q that minion or else he's going to take a bunch of damage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Missing CS, yeah, it does happen under tower, especially against bad players. I can assure you that if I were to play against you and I made you farm under tower, you would miss over half the creeps between me denying you and you missing the CS. And that's not that, and that like goes to like a lot of platinum players that I go against, right? That's not just like you. Priority, right? You explained to me that that you understood priority to be like you can go and you can go do something, right? Like you can go help your Udyr at the crab, right? It's like super important in this meta, just like right, change crabs to be super important, so that like if you don't help your jungle contest a jungle crab, like you're basically trolling as a laner because like you're not trying to win the game, right? So we'll put here like crab. The other things it helps us do is there's different reasons to like leave a lane. And what priority ends up being is it's like a decision every single time that you crash a wave. We're going to put right here crash wave. And we'll go into that a little bit later while we do it. But just as a small breakdown, right? If we were to look at, I'm going to change apps real quick to over here to Rift Kit, my favorite. Every time that you crash a tower under, every time you crash a wave under tower, right? You basically you make a decision as to what you do, okay? What I mean by that is, did my pen just crash?
I think it did.
I think my pen just crashed. Holy shit. That's so sad. Well, that's so sad. Anyway, pros of pushing was that we deny CS / miss CS. Right, we got priority. I think that's all we had, right, so far?
Yeah.
And then the cons was ganks. And then we had in parentheses vision. And then we had then we missed CS. Yeah, so this is gonna look a lot sloppier because I don't really care to rewrite it super sexily. Basically, what this priority means is like whenever you crash this tower, he's forced to stay under the tower and CS, right? And in that time, you can go into the enemy jungle, go down river, base if you want to, come back, do stuff like that, right? So let's like just literally list out all the options you have, right? There's option 1, which is literally harass him under tower, make it hard for him to farm, right? So number 1 is harass. This is not going to work because it's not a writing app. So option 1 is to harass him under tower, right? And that totally works if you're a ranged champion, and that can kind of work for Renekton, and it's a little bit more valuable versus a Nasus, right? Because again, one of our goals is to make sure that he doesn't stack up with a lot of farm. I will tell you, a lot of time people overvalue this because it really doesn't do a lot. But you'll know if it's right for your matchup, okay? So like versus Nasus, it's pretty good. A lot of the time, it's not worth it. The other option we have is to leave lane, right? Which actually ends up being multiple options, right? You can go into their jungle, you can go down river, or you can go into your jungle, right? Like if you're getting invaded, if you want to invade, or if you want to like go gank mid or something. All of these have wards associated with them, right? You can place a ward here, you can place a ward here, you can place like a pink over here, or you can place a pink over here or here, right? All these have wards associated with them, right? So we can leave our lane to ward, or we can leave our lane to go make our own play, right? This isn't just for like early game. This is for like pretty much like all stages of lane phase. And then the other option that we have is that we can just sit here patiently on the bush, right? That's totally an option, and it's not to be overlooked. And then one of the other options is to just recall base. Right? And that will let us get a really good base in, and it'll get us items. Something that you should look to do whenever you have like your phage completed or something, right? So these are things that you need to be consciously thinking about whenever you're pushing. What am I going to do when I crash this wave? Okay? And that starts from when the wave is even and you make the decision to push. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. With that, I don't really care about that. So, That's the priority part explained. Let me alt tab back to here. The other thing is pushing gives us a minion advantage, right? Because of the fact that literally our minions die before their minions die. So we will have more minions. Alright? This culminates into an EXP advantage. Because when our minions die, or when their minions die, we get EXP, right? Which means we get level ups before they do. Do you know when you level up, like when the first level up happens? Like when you hit level 2?
It's around the second wave.
Yeah, it's around the second wave. And the third one?
Uh, third, I think after the fourth or somewhere.
Okay. And then do you know level 4 and 5 isn't super important. Do you know level 6?
No, I don't know which wave is 6.
Okay, cool. And that's fine. But the 2, 3 are pretty important because that's when you get your new abilities, right? Level 6 is pretty important because you also get your ultimate, and it's also that early to mid game transition that we were talking about. So I'll make sure you know those, and then like you can apply these to your games, right? Because since it's something that we play around, because it's one of the pros of pushing, we need to know this and we need to be able to play around it, right? A really common thing in top lane is called the level 2 all in. It's you push, you get level 2, and then you all in the enemy, right? It's a lot more common actually like on Ignite top laners, right? And it's a lot more common like on champions like Jax, champions like Wukong, champions like dashes and a lot of damage, right? Um, Yasuo, for example. And this goes for like mid lane as well, but I'm explaining it for top lane. So there's the EXP advantage, and then this ends up turning into what we were just going to call advantageous trades, okay? What I mean by that is whenever you push, you get more openings in order to take good trades against your opponent. Because since you have more minions, right? Since you have the bigger minion wave, they can't trade onto you without tanking a lot of creeps. And creeps in the early game add up a lot of damage. Caster creeps have 24 AD, melee creeps have like 12 AD, and like I think they do half damage to champions technically, but that DPS does add up in a trade, right? Like 3 caster creeps autoing you twice each ends up being 60 damage, and that might as well have just been a champion auto attacking you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So whenever we push, we have advantageous trades. We have priority. We can make them miss CS, which kind of comes from the trades, right? And then the priority gives us vision. And then the cons, right? We said the ganks, especially if we're low on vision. This vision thing, what it means is it takes more resources to push. It takes resources to push, right? It takes you literally using your abilities on the wave, using your auto attacks on the wave, right? These are openings that our opponents can use against us if we're like in an even matchup. But this is a winning matchup, so you don't have to worry about it too much, right? And then if you were playing a champion that takes mana, for example, it would cost you mana to push the wave, right? For Renekton, since you don't have mana, all you have to worry about is your cooldowns and also your wards, right? If you push and don't have a ward, then then this gank is very, very real, and you'll just like you have to be strong enough to 2v1 basically. And then missing CS, this is something that we're going to just like it's real for you, but it should not be. What I mean by that is that you should I'm gonna teach you to be comfortable pushing waves and CSing well. Kind of like there's different ways to last hit, which go with the 3 different ways that we were talking about as far as the way the wave can go. And I'll go ahead and teach you like how to practice those different ways of pushing, okay? Or different ways of last hitting so that you can get comfortable CSing in a pushing situation, right? Because when we have more creeps than the enemy, our creeps do more damage, and so it's actually the windows to last hit get smaller. Does that make sense? Like five caster creeps hitting 1 creep makes it a lot harder to CS, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then like I know you mentioned like if we get stuck under their tower, stuff like that. So anyway, so that's the pros and cons of pushing, right? So let's talk about even waves. Tell me what you know about even waves. And what are the pros of keeping a wave even?
I can bully them off this farm easier without taking turret shots. I have more opportunity to back away if I see the jungler. Um, it's easier to take CS because I don't have to go under his tower to do it without taking any damage from him trying to trade me for it.
Oh, okay. Make sure you're not confusing too much the position of the wave, right? Like if the wave could be like right here or like here or
Yeah.
like here with the direction that the wave is going, okay? Because you can have an even wave on their side of the map. Like when I say even or pushing, I mean like literally just like you count the creeps, 6 versus 6 or like 9 versus 6. Like and that as opposed to like the exact position of the minion wave, okay? Um, because I think you mentioned earlier, like you don't have to worry about the tower, like whenever you go for trades, like there's times when you're pushing and your wave's over here, you don't have to worry about the tower back then either, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But I know what you mean as far as like you don't have to worry about the tower for trade. Like yes, uh, that does matter as far as like that's one of the things that we do, and that's one of the I forgot to write this down, but it's one of the cons for pushing is that if you push and you're directly in front of them, you're not able to go for an all-in, right? Because you can't really all-in someone under tower. Or you can, but you need a considerable lead in order to do that first, right? Unless you're a Kali who can ignore towers. Um,
I hate that shit.
it's pretty annoying. So okay, so these are the pros of pushing. What are the cons?
Um, he can. Fuck. Um, ganking is a little bit harder for the jungler. Well, no, because it can be anywhere. Fuck. I don't know.
Okay,
I
the cons are, and like this can be a pro or a con depending on how you look at it, is that trades are more open. What I mean by that is you're like pretty much permanently in trade stance until somebody gets an advantage. And if you don't know what I mean by trade stance, that's okay. It's a term that I'm directly stealing from I believe it's called like League Class 101 or whatever, League Craft, right? And it's the first lesson because it's super important. And all it is when these creeps meet, right? The wave's even right now. It's literally just like when he goes for last hits, you can trade on him. And when you go for last hits, he can trade on you, right? He's literally busy auto attacking slash queuing a creep, and you can hit him back. It's that simple. That's what a trade stance is, right? And in like ranged matchups, like down here, right? Like you got more stuff to worry about. But in top lane, it's really simple. It's just one-on-one cooldowns that you got to keep track of and stuff like that, right? So like in trade stance, we try to keep track of our opponent's cooldowns. We try to keep track of their auto attack, their positioning on the wave, and then we want to keep track of these bubbles that form, right? Where if I were to auto attack, I'm gonna delete this. If I were to auto attack this Nasus and I'm standing like over here, right? I don't have to worry too much about his creeps hitting me. But if I walk up here and I hit him, all of his creeps are gonna gang up on me and I'm gonna take a bunch of damage. Does that make sense? So these bubbles form in which we're safe, that our opponent can't hit us. And then like these are the types of things you need to be thinking about when you're in trade stance, right? So one of the things about having it even is trade stance is prevalent, right? And then that jungle thing that we were talking about, right? That the ganking thing, that is how it's like it's easy to escape ganks. What this really means for Renekton, this is true, right? For champions with escapes, even trade stance is like pretty easy to like. If you're Camille, you hook shot right here, you get out, right? Or if you're Nart, you like double jump out. If you're playing Jax, you ward jump out. Renekton, you can like single or double dash. Junglers kind of struggle to close the gap here, right? And this is where a gank setup is really nice because if you stun this guy, you have a stronger advantage than if he slows you and he's trying to gank you. Does that make sense? So it typically benefits the team, benefits the winning 2v2. So in this game, it's a pro, right? Because we said we had the winning 2v2. Like you and Udi are gonna rock this guy's socks off if this Yi and Nasus try to fight you. But in other games, it might not be because you might be the one with the inferior early game jungler, right? So like for sure, even trade stance sounds pretty good for the Renekton versus Nasus matchup, right? Because that trade stance is thumbs up for me, right? Because that's one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to trade a lot. We wanted to punish him whenever he uses his Q, right? And then the last one, and we'll just briefly mention it, is pulling the lane, right? Pulling the lane pretty much has all the opposites of pushing the lane. It's harder for the enemy to gank you. It is hard to gank. It's hard to gank you. You are lower on levels, right? Um, you have a more difficult time finding trades. That's one of the cons, right? But like you can basically just like invert the pushing. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, cool. I typically don't like to explain pulling too much, but one of the cons of pushing is that if your opponent has a better wave clear advantage than you, then they can very easily freeze the lane, right? So one of the things we said is in this matchup, the wave clear advantage is relatively even, right? Like you guys basically have the same amount of wave clear. You have a slightly better one because yours is manaless, right? So if you can drain this guy out of mana and then freeze on him, he can't do anything, okay? And then we also mentioned that if we push, we can get advantageous trades on him and get our level ups. So an early game plan, combining all the things we talked about, that you could follow this game, is to push levels 1 and 2, look for trades this whole time, right? And then past level 3, you can pull the wave, because you're not looking to trade too much, so that you can get the wave over here, and then freeze. This is a really, really, really common game plan for Renekton players because it fulfills all of his power spikes, right? Like level 1, you're actually not that strong compared to other champions, right? You kind of just have your Q or your stun depending on what you level up, but you do have a strong push because it's AoE, right? And then you have that level 2 all-in / level 3 all-in based on the creep wave whenever you're pushing the lane, which Renekton's really good at, and if you take Ignite, it's even better. I didn't mention this, but ever since the teleport nerf, I personally hate running teleport in solo queue. I think it's just like way better to just take Ignite. You might try it out as well. You'll get a lot more kills that way if you play around these level ups that we're talking about. And then past the level 3, right, because we're worried about the jungle ganking us when we're pushing, we can pull the lane. And we don't have to worry too much this game specifically. This is why it's a good plan for this game, because of the fact that Master Yi and Nasus don't have that strong gank against you, right? Like you have a double dash to get out of ganks with. If he Qs you, you just dash twice, and it's like, nice gank, dude. You didn't do anything, right? And then whenever you pull it, you have guaranteed ganks against this Nasus. And if he burnt mana, like slowing you and eating the wave and whatever, like he'll be by the time that the wave gets here, right? And like as Renekton, we can use our Q to constantly thin the wave as it reaches here, so it's a manageable wave for us. And then we have really easy access Udyr ganks. Does that all make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's like a game plan you can do. I don't know if that's what your game plan is this game. I don't know if you even remember your game plan, but it's really important. If you noticed, it is still 1 minute 41 into this, and we've been going for like 40 minutes. All these things that we talked about, I don't even have to watch your gameplay to know. And the reason why is because these are the types of things, and this relates to that blue line that I drew earlier with the early mid game, the mid late game, and the late game. Here I'm drawing them yellow because I just didn't change pens, right? But these are the types of things that you need to think about here. What this is champion select, right? Whenever you're choosing your champion, we mentioned that you wanted to play Renekton, Irelia, and Fiora, right? You choose the champion that you think would best suit the game plan that you're going to play, and you're going to think about these things in between champion select and early game, which is just your loading screen, and you're going to try to think of a good game plan, and you're just going to try to execute the good game plan, okay? You're not going to try to change your game plan too much unless like you start inting like really hard, and even then, like you might just stick to a good game plan. And then once this that first tower falls, then we evaluate the game plan that we're going to execute in our mid and mid late game. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we can like better plan / have a good idea of what we're going to be doing in our games, and we have really clear spots to think about them so that we can organize our thoughts, collect ourselves, and play better. And then, as I said, I don't like to think about mid late game until we see how the early game goes, because there's 3 ways it goes, right? You lose, you win, or you're like basically even. So let's check out how you play this. Alright, there you go. This is the trade stance we're talking about. He procs your bone plating. you should be looking to walk up slash deny CS, right? The fact that he's like CSing with his Q and you're not pressuring him off of it, right? Like that's poor trade stance. You should be going up. Your Q doesn't draw aggro, whereas like if he all of his like if he autos or Qs you back, like if he Qs you, then you're denying him farm, right? And then like you guys trade even because like we said, your sustain's relatively even, right? Um, and so like that's something that you could look to do is you should not be letting this guy get away with getting that Q off. You should be looking to push the wave. You should be looking to get that advantage that we're talking about. Right, and so his Q's on cooldown for a bit, you go for a Q trade. It's important that every time that we auto attack the enemy champion, we try to drop minion aggro as much as possible. If you auto attack and you chase into him, right, all these minions are going to gang up and auto you, right? So what you would want to do is you'd want to hop into the bush and just like drop minion aggro so that they stop hitting you. Because whenever we attack enemy champions and the enemy minions hit us, our enemy minions haven't stopped hitting their minions, right? So we're pushing the wave, and depending on how fast you want to push it, that can be a good thing, but most of the time, it's not worth, like, tanking creeps to push the wave, so it's best to just drop out, and then just come back out, and then start autoing, right? Because whenever their creeps are hitting us, and our creeps are hitting theirs, we're not denying farm, right? Remember, the difference between denying and missing CS is that denying is something that we actively do to our opponent, whereas missing CS is something that happens when they're bad, right? Uh, and then this is us good. Right, so if we're good players, we can deny CS, and if they're bad players, they're going to miss CS. We want to get really good at denying CS because that's like forced mistakes that our opponents have, right? Um, so, right, it's like this CS, right? That was denied. That was a good job, right? You just missed one right there. Oh no, it's not going to be denied. Oh, that's tragic. It might be. Right, so you go for that Q, and then he ends up using it on you, right? So that's CS that he's not, I mean, he still gets it, but he's not getting Q stacks off of, so that's pretty good, right? And oh look, there's the level 2, right? And so, I'm going to just briefly talk about those level up windows that we were talking about, right? The level 2, the level 3, I don't really care too much to explain level 4 and 5, and then level 6. Level 4 and 5 aren't super important for you to know. It's easier to just check it on your XP bar. But these are relatively consistent, and this one's important to remember. Okay, so level 2 is on the first minion of the second wave. Right, literally the first creep that dies. Right, so you'll notice he has 5 CS here because one of them died, and then you hit level 2. That one's really easy to remember. All it takes is you push the first wave, and then you rapidly kill that second creep, and then you're ready. You need to be ready to level up E, dash on him, and trade on him. Okay? If you play Renekton, it's a super common thing to do, is like stack up Fury, and then as soon as you hit level 2, you dash, you auto, you Q, or like even if they're in melee range of you, right, maybe you level up W, and then you just like W them. Something you need to be really comfortable doing, okay?
Okay.
And then level 3 is the third minion of the third wave. See how it's like a bunch of 3s? That's super easy to remember, right? Again, level 4 and 5, not super important. And so like right here, right, you instead of whatever ability you didn't take, you take it now, and then you also trade with that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's like stun or dash, like you dash on them, you stun them, you Q them, and then you dash away. And obviously you throw in auto attacks in between, and we'll talk about that if you aren't doing it already. And then level 6 is pretty important as well. But this one isn't so hard and fast and set in stone because of the fact that as people like lead to level 6, a lot of people base, a lot of people get stuck in a jungle fight, people might kill their opponents. A lot of stuff happens between level 1 and level 6, so it's not super constant. If 2 top laners just stay and farm the whole time, it'll be on the second melee creep of the 6-minute cannon wave, right? However, it's really rare for this to happen, and you shouldn't, like, you don't have to memorize that. What you do need to memorize is the 6 minutes, okay? Look at that. It's a 6 and it's a 6 minutes. That's really easy to remember. Level 3, third CS, third wave. Level 2, first CS, second wave, right? These are all really easy numbers to memorize. And you just need to know them because like I said, this is the transition from the early game to the early mid game, and it's very important to know this because if you're playing against a Malphite and that dude slaps a CS and you're below 300 HP or his jungle's there to gain, you sure as hell know that he's going to press R on you, right? And so you need to be able to kind of like mentally prepare yourself for that. Or if you're playing Renekton and like you have a level 6 coming up and like the enemy jungle ganks you, you can hit level 6, and then your level 6 Renekton, nothing can fight that, right? Like, you're pretty overpowered when you have your ultimate on. So, right, so like that level 2 happens, right? And then I pretty much always just like you just dash on him, because if our goal is to push this wave in, right? We hit that level 2, you should just dash in Q and then dash through again, and then like you use your AoE abilities on the wave, you traded, and then you just keep going, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't even see what you leveled up. You got your W, right? So yeah, we walked up, cross PTA. The only thing that I'm gonna tell you about is it appears to me that you don't really like think about your Fury bar too much. It's really important to think about our Fury bar, right? So like our Q grants Fury anytime that we just hit anything with it. And then our W instantly gives us 20 Fury if we're below 50, right? But it's really important to it's like if you're that close to being over 50 and you use an ability, it's usually worth it to greed like 1 or 2 autos for the ability like to be empowered, like your Q specifically, okay? Because like the difference in heal is pretty substantial. I believe it triples in healing. Yeah, it literally triples in healing. Exactly. So like that's pretty big, right? And so like, oh damn, I didn't catch it. I'm trying to pause it between your W and your Q, but I keep missing it.
I should have auto attacked between the W and the Q.
Yeah, so you're literally gonna go from 25, you're gonna go to 40 because you're Wing and it gives 20 against champions, right? Gives 10 against non-champions. Boom. And you're 45. All you have to do is auto him once, proc PTA, and then use your empowered Q. Right, so it does 2 things. You PTA procs, right, which makes your Q do more damage because it's an amp, right? And then your Q is amped by your Fury, so it also does more damage. So just getting like the order in which you do this is really important. Like getting that 1 extra auto attack means your Fury is above 50, so you end up doing more damage and healing more. And then your PTA procs, so you end up doing 12% more damage with your Q anyway, right? So it literally changes from doing 71 damage to doing 110, and then it also does an extra, what, 12, 13 damage on top of that, right? So you're literally just doubling the damage your Q does if you do it in the right order. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So that's pretty non-negligible, right? He would have he'd have like 70 less health right now. I'd rather have a Nasus at 200 health than at 270 health, because that's within lethal of a flash W ignite, right? If you were taking ignite. So yeah. Yeah, what's up? We do lose CS because we're like looking for trades at this time when we should be autoing the wave, right? But it still ended up being a pretty decent trade. You want to make sure that you escort. This isn't going to happen in lower ranks, but it is a habit to have. Like it's good to go for this ward, but it's also important to push this wave out fully, okay? If Nasus was smart, what he would do is he'd recognize that he has lifesteal in his kit, and he can face tank these creeps a little bit just to keep them right here, right? And so this didn't happen because he was smart. This just happened because you pushed like slower than you should have. But they can slow the rate at which your minions come in to get this freeze going, which makes it really hard for you to punish, okay? This is really common with Nasus players. So what it's called is you just escort the wave to make sure that if he's tanking, he's also tanking you. And a champion can't tank 5 or 6, 7 creeps, right, total. 8. This is 8. And 9 if that one's dying, right? So you can't take 9 creeps in a champion. That's impossible. No champion can tank that. So like just make sure that you escort this fully, and then go for it, right? Something that I would say is against like really early game junglers, this isn't going to be good because of the fact that like champions that can do like red buff into gank, this isn't a good strat against, but this is a good strat against most junglers versus those red buff into gank champions. You're gonna want to ward after your first wave, okay? Champions like that are like Xin Zhao,
Lisa.
yeah, Lisa and stuff like that. That it's like, wow, that's a cheese gank or whatever. It's not a cheese gank. It's really common in this meta, but you need to prepare for it. But anyway, so that's the first. So like you'll notice that the wave's now really awkward, right? And like you're afraid to walk up. So again, it's just making sure that we get a more efficient push by non-stop auto attacking and using our Q during that first wave more efficiently, okay? Because what happens is it's a butterfly effect. Anytime that you don't kill a creep as fast as you can, right? It's now taking damage. It's now dealing damage to a minion. And if they, like, because you didn't kill that minion earlier, it's not going to kill your minions, or it's going to kill your minions earlier, and like that adds up to like to it magnifies its effect over time, right? So the sooner that you realize that you need to start pushing, the stronger your push will be in like 5 to 10 seconds. Right, so there's our level 3. You'll notice that's the third creep. So right, so now we have dash. Without having dash, it makes sense why you're a little bit more hesitant to walk up. But like this would normally be right, where we would go in for that heavier trade. Where if we've been not constantly auto attacking, like we're stacking Fury up, because like again, level 2 you level up your E and your Q, so you can clear it. This would be where you level up your W. You dash in, use all your Fury on your W so you can do as much damage as possible, and then Q and then dash out and legit zero counterplay because he's stunned the whole time, right? Please don't miss this.
I think I
Oh
do.
dear, you do miss it. That makes me very sad. Don't miss cannon creeps. They're worth a shit ton of money, right? So this is usually where I like to pause replays and I get to talk / flame you for something kind of funny. So like at this point in the lane phase, there's been 19 creeps that have died.
Yeah.
Right, because of the fact that it's 3 waves, 6 on each plus a cannon minion, right? So 3 times 6 plus 1, that's 19, right? And so you have gotten 9 of those 19, right? That is below half. And this is a funny thing that I like to show to people. Typically, the percentage of the CS that you have lines up with your current rank percentage, right? Inverted, right? So like you're in the 74 percentile, and it's kind of hard to go below 50%. Like you kind of have to actively try, but what I mean by this is like you are in the 20s, like bottom 26% technically, as far as rank is concerned, right? So you're going to be CSing like a bottom 26% player. So like literally just by making sure that you're getting a higher percentage of these creeps. Like when I coach gold players, they get 70% of the creeps. When I coach platinum players, they end up getting 80 to 90% of the creeps, which is pretty good, right? 90% of 19 ends up being like 16, 17, 18 CS, right? That should be your aim. That should be your goal, to be able to execute a push and to get all the CS. And it's as simple as whenever a creep is dying on your side, you make sure that you get it, and then you can do whatever you want during the other time. Okay?
Okay.
So I just want to like make you conscious of the fact that you got less than half of the CS. So we see Yi now. Let me do that. Fog of War. You go into hit him. It's important that you recognize. Yeah. It's important that you recognize whenever you fight a jungle out of crab, it's so hard as a top laner to actually get the damn crab because most junglers save their smite for it. Your goal should be just to scare him off the crab and to not do any damage to the crab. By the time you approached him, right, it was already too low. But it's more about knowing where he is, and then you don't want to trade damage against him, right? Because at the end of the day, you're laning versus this Nasus, not against this Yi. This Yi, as a jungler, you can base whenever the heck you want, reset your HP, right? Or use smite and regen a bunch of it. But as a laner, you're stuck with that HP until you have a really good base timing, right? Or else you have to burn TP. So it's typically not good to trade HP with the enemy jungler unless you have an invade jungler who wants to mess up their day, okay? And so like we see him and we should just like back off because it's not in our best interest to want to do anything regarding that, okay? Like we have Udyr. Udyr opted into, wow, he literally did a buff. This guy's just getting outpaced. Anyway, back to top lane. Right, so after we do that, you'll notice that this guy actually has a really nice freeze on you, where he was able to stall that wave in front, and he's just kind of been willy-nilly CSing, thinning the wave as much as possible, right? And so again, the way to prevent this is to just make sure that during those first few waves, we are getting a clean push in. That means your wave is crashing at the tower earlier than I believe it's around 225 to 235. Your creeps, your melee creeps, should literally be marching in and being killed. Okay, and then what should happen is if their wave matches it and gets caught here, it's going to stall a little bit, and it's going to create an even minion wave on their side of the map, right? And that even minion wave on their side of the map is almost my trigger word because I hear it so much in like videos and stuff. But what that does is it causes their reinforcement minions, right? Like literally we're closer to the blue base than we are to the red base, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so their creeps are going to get here first. They're going to deal damage to your creeps, and they're going to end up snowballing a wave into your side of the map. Like it'll slow push towards you. As long as you don't deal excessive damage to the wave, aka you don't jump in, you don't Q, you don't auto attack him, like their wave will push towards you. Does that make sense? As long as it's even on their side. You might miss 2 or 3, you might be denied 2 or 3 CS, right? But like that's perfectly fine. You won't miss anything as long as you just like let it happen, right? So this is like pretty close to being an even wave on their side of the map because of the fact that this Nasus is slightly misplayed, but like you'll notice you're queuing, and then like look at that. Notice how they have the 5 caster creeps and 3 melees. So that's more than you're gonna have. So it did end up making that even wave on their side of the map, but it ended up costing us a lot of farm, right? Because of the fact that we didn't push it in super efficiently. And so like that whole thing that we talked about early game where you want to get more gold and EXP than your opponent, right? So far we're technically failing at it, right? We're losing this matchup in the sense that he has more farm than we do, right? Yeah, that's the trade I was talking about earlier. Versus NASA specifically, you don't want to linger around too much after your W if you go for that trade. Because of the fact that, and this is versus a lot of champs with auto attack modifiers, you don't want to go for an extra auto attack after your Q, okay? You just want to dash out after you do an empowered W trade because of the fact that you want to take no retaliation damage. The exception is when you're full HP, right? Because of the fact that you want to have your health regen ticking and you want to have your Q actually healing you something like at all. But versus like champs like Nasus, Darius, Jax, right? You don't want to linger around too much. You want to go for quick, short, bursty trades where you use all your cooldowns and they use none. There are some champions that can auto attack while stunned. A good example is like Gragas W, Camille Q. Versus those champs, you want to make sure that you catch them doing something else. I think Nasus's Q goes through stuns. So if he stuns, if he Qs through your stun, you want to just keep trading. Like that's perfectly fine because his is on like 7-second cooldown, right? And so during those 4 seconds of your E, you can keep trading damage, and it's going to be beneficial to you because you have a D blade and he has a D shield, and like your auto attacks just do more damage, right? Wait, do they? I guess not. You guys have the same AD. That's pretty interesting. I didn't realize Nasus has a higher AD than you.
No, that's
Yeah.
weird.
That's because he went he went
Oh
domination
yeah.
as his first page, right? And so like if you went domination as well secondary with taste of blood and stuff, then like you'd be able to have the advantage in AD. Right. So he's going for Qs, and so you'll notice he's pushing. He now has like advantageous push. It's kind of hard for you to trade on him. But a good Renekton player, right, at this stage of the lane has developed an HP lead, has developed like he's burned through more than a very small fraction of his mana pool, and you're able to like zone him off of creeps on this part by going for short trades. You don't have to E anymore, right? If you're winning here, and you can just like stand in front of the creeps and deny him, right? So here he's gonna go for this cannon, right? Every time that a champion walks for a cannon or something, they're very predictable. Good trade, good stuff. Pop your potion if you already haven't. Okay, cool. Right, and so there we saw his Q, right? So you saw that one, he got 2 Qs, right, during that trade. Oh, please don't crash on me. It's gonna crash. Alright.
Rest in peace.
This is why I hate working with replay files, because they always crash, but that's okay. We'll just open it up again. But yeah, that was the 2 Qs. That trade lasted over 7 seconds, right? Because of the fact that he got the last hit with his Q, and then like you stunned, you Q'd, and then you like tried to walk away, but like you still like lingered around, and then you didn't dash out immediately. That's the thing that I want you to try to do, is to make sure that you cut those trades shorter than a 7-second trade, because at that point it's not really a trade, right? It's like a mini all-in. And then Nasus, by cycling through more cooldowns of his Q, is going to have a better time against you. Does that make sense? Alright, perfect. You have the vein thing, right? Like that's the vein, Project Vein
Yeah.
symbol. Nice.
That's if you get like the EA guy had to get like 80 tokens or some shit. I just didn't spend it on like Hextech chests or anything. I just said fuck it, because now I get the borders no matter like when I get the skins.
Oh really? That's pretty cool. Alright. We were around here. Oh,
I think
spoiler
that
alert, you die.
I think yeah, I think it cost me my death too. That trade.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the way you've been playing this lane, like the fact that you traded with E, right? That's you burned your health potion over there, is what happened,
Yeah.
right? And so like a really good way to think about health potions is there are mistakes that can happen in the lane. So it's like if you fuck up a trade, you pop a health pot, and it's like nothing happened, right? But also if they fuck up a trade, they burn their health pot, and then you can now punish that because you have a potion advantage. So the next time they make a mistake, you can take a longer trade, use your health potion, and then they're down 150 health, right? So anyway, he burned his potion because of the fact that you found a good trade earlier, right? But like you also burned your potion because you made a mistake earlier, and then like from this point, whoever makes the next mistake is chunked and is going to die the next time that like something bad happens, right? And so it ends up being you who finds a bad trade. Surprise, surprise, because the wave's pushing in a non-advantageous way for you, right? So like right here, right? All you have to do is E immediately out, like we said earlier. Like that's how you want to find trades versus Nasus. Um, if not, he gets auto, he gets a Q, and like that's the level up advantage, right? That he has is that I didn't mention this really. I should have mentioned it, but so level ups in top lane specifically versus like melee champions, they end up being worth a little bit more than they are for range champions because like you just have more armor and health associated with them. But level ups in League are worth anywhere from 400 to 600 gold depending on the champion you're playing. Juggernauts tend to be near that 600 range. Like you'll see like champions like Darius, champions like Mordekaiser. Actually Mordekaiser, I think that guy has like one of the lowest base armors in the game. But like melee champions that are really healthy and tanky and stuff, right? They end up having like 600 gold. Renekton and Nasus are somewhere near the 550 gold worth of stats. Like literally a level up gives you AD, armor, MR, HP, base attack speed, right? Like that's worth money in the shop, and it ends up being worth like 500 to 600 gold, right? Or 400 to 600 gold. And so it's basically like he kills you twice every time that he has this level up on you, okay? And so that's the type of advantage that you want to think that you're trading into. Is this guy literally has killed me twice? I need to trade super good into him, aka I need to not take any damage and I need to dash out, okay? So yeah, you're lingering around with like 80 HP. I'm pretty sure. I don't. How much is his Dark Harvest doing right now? I'm pretty sure he can E flash Q you and you die like instantly, or maybe he can just flash Q you. Cause his
I think that's what he does.
yeah,
Under my tower though.
cause his like Dark Harvest does like 20 or 30 base damage early game. His Q does like 186, and then you don't have that much armor. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can just flash Q you and you die 100%. So if you see him hold his Q, he's going to flash Q you. Just spoiler alert. Like, I don't know, if I were him, I would have CS one of those with Q. But you can tell he's thinking about it because he hasn't used his Q, you know? And so yeah, you're just looking to level up here. Oh, there's the bone plating gone. Now you're at 90 again. Okay, his thing went away. There it is. Nice. A little bit of hesitation from him, right? But there he ended up doing it. So yeah, he does flash to you, and that's just because of how we played the trade going in, right? We kind of did two poor trades, right? One over here where we like you need to just E out immediately and not take that return damage, and then up here where we're trading into a really big minion wave, and then we didn't dash out immediately again. Just we end up dying in a matchup that we have pretty much every single advantage in, right? Um, that's pretty not good. We do TP to recover it, right? But you never he'd BM'd you. You never really want to TP to a lane that you're supposed to be winning because you died. So anyway, so you end up having 18 CS, right? I don't know how much CS is possible by this mark. I want to say it's near the 30/40. It's definitely past 30. It's near the 40/50 mark. So like you have a very low. You literally have the lowest CS on your team other than the support, right? So you're doing pretty poorly this game. What you need to know is that this is a cannon wave, and I don't think you have the wave clear right now to fast push this. What you should be assuming is that Nasus is like based in between the time that he killed you, and that he's going to be walking back to lane, right? And you cannot push a regular wave, a cannon wave, I mean, fast enough to deny the full thing. So what you should do is you should instead slow push this, get a creep advantage, and look to do something off that. Okay.
Okay.
Right. And so this is not a slow push. This is a fast push, kind of. Right. And so we talked about earlier how there's like different ways to CS, and so I'll go ahead and talk about it now. If this is the HP bar of a minion, right? This is like 100% HP. This is at 0 HP. Let's talk about how you last hit, because it matters. Renekton right now, you have 109 AD, right? Remember that number. It's important. It's literally any minion with 109 HP or less, you get the gold for whenever you auto attack it, right? Melee creeps is like 12 AD. Cannon minions are 44 AD. And then caster creeps are 27 right now. This changes as the game goes on. Earlier they were 24, but yeah. So here's like 27, right? Here's like 12, and here's 44, and then here's your line, which is 109. Do you see how big of a window you have between these, right? If you're playing a mage and you have like 60 base AD, like it's somewhere over here. But as an AD champion, it's like all the way over here. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So when we're talking about slow pushing a wave, the best way to slow push a wave is to make sure that you have an advantage in minion creep numbers, right? But is to last hit these creeps whenever they're in this range of HP. What I mean by that is if you could time your... Have you ever played fighting games before?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, do you know what the term frame perfect means? Like, do you play Super Smash Bros?
Sort of. Sort of.
Okay, so
I know.
you know how like in fighting games they're
There's certain things you can do, like if you do it within a certain certain amount of frames, it'll.
yeah, exactly. The really good example is like in Super Smash Bros. I don't know if you've played that. If you haven't played that, you don't have a childhood. But like if you shield an ability in the first like 2 frames, you get a perfect shield.
Yeah.
Which means like the time it takes for you to take down your shield is like reduced, so you can counterattack faster, right? And so like League of Legends has a 30-tick server, which means its game gets processed at a rate of like 0. I think it's 0.33333 repeating, right? So like whenever these bullets are flying in from these creeps, there's like a frame in which the minion dies, right? If you could frame perfect CS, that's what you would want to do. It's like literally as the bullet flies in, you need to be taking that last hit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So then like for cannons, it's when it's like at 43 HP and it's gonna hit, and then you just like, just kidding, my Renekton auto attack hit it first, so you get the gold, right? So like that's what a slow push under perfect ideal conditions is like, is where you are like, I'm gonna delete this and we're just gonna watch the creep die in slow motion, right? Like boom, you see how that health doesn't tick until right after, like the bullet lands and there's still like a little bit of like, boom, you see how that delay? You need to be last hitting during that delay. Right, so you kill that one pretty high, and so like there's definitely another bullet that could have landed on that creep, right? So instead, it goes to this one. And so you see that butterfly effect that I was talking about? Like because you killed this one at a higher HP than it could have been killed at, this cannon now spends less time hitting that one. This one spends less time tanking damage, so your creeps get to just like continue to push more and more. That's the butterfly effect that I was talking about. Like, oh, there's the tick, and then these bullets are flying in. So that one I'd consider acceptable, right? Because these 2 bullets are going to hit it, and there's not going to be time for that cannon to hit it. So like that I think would be a good last hit for sure. Let's watch this one. All right, like this is like the cardinal sin, right? Where you're auto attacking a creep that's not even tanking anything, right? So like if you kill this creep before like it even gets aggroed, right? The same thing with this one, right? What you're doing is these creeps are going to lose all the damage that they could have potentially done, right? Like these melees aren't going to die, and it's just going to end up giving the Nasus more CS, basically, is the way of looking at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So use TPing now, and so everything I just said just gets fucking thrown out the window. Your only goal is to punish this dude for TPing right here. Right, this is a really bad TP. The reason it's a really bad TP is because, you see these creeps right here?
Yeah.
Like, these creeps are symmetrical to his creeps. So they're going to be arriving at the same time, and I guarantee if this dude just based at a, like, he took way too long to base, but if he just based at a better time, he could be, like, right here compared to these creeps, and he'd arrive when the wave would have been crashing tower if you'd fast pushed it. But anyway, the thing about the slow pushing is make sure that you're last hitting during that frame perfect, like, last bits of that minion dying, and that's perfectly fine. If you want to keep a wave even, right, the way that you last hit is you literally just think, if the enemy hits the wave, I hit the wave. And that's it. It's about as easy as it gets. If he hits a creep when it's like 100% HP, you hit a creep that's at 100% HP. And you guys just keep going back and forth, and whoever has the better wave clear can obviously like out push the opponent, right? Because they can hit multiple creeps at once. They can just deal more damage to the wave than the enemy can, right? And so whenever you want to fast push, you just balls to the wall, don't stop auto attacking, use all your abilities on the wave, that kind of stuff. And then you just want to maximize your damage, okay? So as Renekton, it's really easy. You just put yourself in a place where your Q hits everything. If you can, try to hit 50 ferocity, and then use your E on the wave as well, right? So anyway, he just TP'd. We W, and that's fine. But he is 6 and we are 5, so we can't push too much. So he TP'd to end up freezing this wave, which is like okay, right? But like we want to get this wave out of here. This is the golden zone for Nasus, right? When the wave is right here, because we can't like do much against this. So you need to just commit your Q to pushing this wave. What that means is whenever you're at that 50 ferocity mark, you stand here, you Q these things, then you E and you double dash in and out to push that wave all the way in, okay? You can't half-ass it, which is what like you've mostly been doing. Again, levels 1 and 3, the reason why I got here was because you didn't push fast enough, but like at this stage in the game, it's because you're not committing all your abilities to the wave, right? Like, good, but like you need to auto attack that one, like physically auto attack it so that this crashes, and then this wave gets stuck here for a bit, and then it's gonna make an even wave on his side guaranteed, because this is gonna stall and it's gonna meet like here-ish, right? Oh wow, I'm good, right? It's like right here, right? So like this is on his side of the map, right? So all you have to do is stop autoing it, and it'll pull. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like the biggest trap that a lot of players fall into, and like I know you died earlier, so you're not explicitly winning, but a really big trap that carry players fall into when they're winning is that they just keep pushing the wave in, and it's just like, do you hate your jungle ganking you? Do you hate the idea of all-inning the opponent? Like you need to turn that advantage you have into something else, right? So like right now that we're kind of losing, it should even be more important because there's no way you're gonna find trades and all in this guy and kill him. Instead, what you should be wanting to do is you should be wanting to pull the wave, and then have your Udyr gank you, and then you guys kill him through that, right? You're not strong enough to kill this guy by yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So you dash in, you trade. Notice how your Q and E kills the full wave, right? So then all that's going to happen is this is going to push in, and he's just going to lifesteal. And this is going to probably just keep happening for the next few. So I'm actually just going to fast forward because I don't feel like... Let's see if you make the same mistake. Oh, look at that even wave on his side of the map. Let's see what happens. You're autoing, right? So you're pushing the wave back in. I don't know. This is a non-sustainable way of playing, right? Because he scales harder than you do, and you're not generating an advantage, right? Actually, technically, you've got more CS than he did in the past, like, bit, but I'm gonna just blame that on the fact that you CS'd really bad at the start of the game, and this is more like how you normally CS, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But, like, you're not generating an advantage in this fashion, you're just kind of catching back up, right? But at the end of the day, if you keep playing like this guy's gonna win the game, right? Because his win condition is to farm, get Q stacks, and then just, like, bonk people on the head later on in the game, right? Whereas your win condition is to snowball this lane, generate an advantage, and then be a menace in team fights to the melee champions and potentially the ranged champions if they miss position, right? So this guy's just autoing and queuing, and you're just like way back here.
I don't know why I was way back.
You're just chilling in Cedar Rapids, right? You're not really punishing his Qs that he uses, right? You missed the cannon creep because of it. And he's been on the wave a little bit more, so like you'll notice his oh, just kidding. It's pushing back into him again, right? Because we keep going for those Qs. So we go for that stun, and we're getting horribly out-traded actually. If you dash, for example, if you dash in, oh he's Oh hey, that's pretty good. You have your Q? Hey, I like that. Honestly, I didn't even realize this guy went How did he go I'm actually curious. Like, wait, did I miss something? Has he just been spamming his E's this whole time? Oh my god, it's gonna crash.
Oh
Nice.
my god.
Oh,
Yeah,
he didn't.
next time.
Oh, he didn't go Sheen. That's why.
Yeah, he
He
went
went Phage.
Phage.
That's so bad. Because then you just go Uum if you're playing. I didn't notice that. Wow. Yeah.
I think after that kill, I just started snowballing.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly what you're supposed to do, right? Is what we said was, like, make him run out of mana, and then just all in him. And it's, that, I mean, wow, I'm actually pretty surprised that, like, it just didn't click in my head. But, yeah, he has no mana. Okay, good Nasus players will take Monoflow Band and buy Sheen, and they don't run into this problem, right? But, this guy definitely misused his
It's a
mana.
monkey.
And that's all good, right? Like you're playing, like you're making mistakes, he is making mistakes, and the only thing you have to do is you have to punish his, and that was a really good punish from you. So good job. Um, and all you did is you matched your mana-less sustain to his sustain. Like if he's trading even with you, then it requires him to use a lot of mana. So that was pretty good. I'm not gonna skip because it might crash if I do that. So we're just gonna play this at 4 times speed. Alright. And you can remember all the things we talked about playing at 4 times speed in your head if you want. I think this is 8 times speed.
Holy shit.
This is insane. Yeah. This will give you a short summary of where the lane's been this whole time, right? So,
Yeah.
it's all just in front of his tower in that golden zone that we were talking about. It's not until you pull it out of the golden zone that you're actually going to have a good time. No, yeah, no, okay, so this is, actually, I didn't even realize, he stayed to, you see how he stayed to farm that wave after he killed you?
Yeah.
If he just based, he doesn't have to use his TP. That's the big thing. And it's not like he's gonna miss a big, like those creeps are so deep under your tower that they're gonna push, and like you see how this wave's so big, he can just catch it. It's just like, that was just really poor decision making from him. And he ends up TPing here, which is bad. Because what he can use the TP for is to refill on mana, right? And then like,
Yeah.
you're checkmated, but... Alright. Hey, farm, farm, farm. We were at 747.
He thinks since he killed me once, he has the advantage.
Well, I mean, he kind of does. He just fucks up by like blowing all. He doesn't have to use his using his W though. Like, cause what does his W do after you already dash away, right? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't do anything. And what does a W do against a champ with an auto attack reset? If he's going for short trades, nothing. He doesn't need to W you. He just needs to trade Q. Boom. That's all. That's it. He won the trade, right? And then he does this shit. Boom. There goes a third of his mana. And then the next time he's gonna like that W does nothing, right? And then he does that, and then he does that, and now he can't ult. So then you kill him, and like that's really well played from you, right? Because you like recognize that, and you're like, oh, he's Zoom. Like that's more just really bad decision making from him. Because if he ults and Qs you, he ends up doing more damage to you than if he Ws you for like a small duration that you have your auto attack reset anyway. So yeah, good punish from you. Auto. Q. Boop. Good job. You don't have to flash there because you're running Triumph, right? But I like the spirit. Here, it's okay for you to farm this wave. Like I told you, it wasn't okay for Nasus to farm it earlier. The reason why is because you're a wave clear champ. Like you're a champ with good wave clear, so you should just E and Q through this wave. Auto Q. Oh no. Okay, good. That was a little bit hard. Try to
Yeah.
auto multiply. Like, try to get all of them low, and then use your Q empowered to wave clear instead of your W empowered. And then like you'll just clear waves easier. So yeah, I mean that was a good kill. What are you building first? Don't build the Tiamat, please. Jesus Christ, you built a Tiamat. Alright. Okay, at this stage of the laning phase, it's like okay. Because of the fact that you're gonna want to leave your oh, you just killed him. No. Build a Black Cleaver, like rush Black Cleaver. Don't build Tiamat. Against Nasus. Because what it does is Tiamat, like all that stuff we were talking about, how you last hit and how you think about auto attacking, that goes out the window as soon as you build a Tiamat. Because you're constantly dealing splash damage to creeps, right? So you're gonna just auto push no matter what. And again, versus Nasus, you're putting him in that golden zone right here, where you can't do anything, and where all he gets to do is farm, and it's just like it's uglier and uglier as the game progresses, right? So like just build Black Cleaver so that when you complete it, right, you know Nasus' ult gives him a bunch of resistances, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Like you'll shred through that, and then all of Renekton's damage is physical damage, so Black Cleaver is a huge power spike in terms of how much damage you do to champions, instead of Tiamat, which like helps your wave clear, but you don't really need that. This game, if you'd built like Black Cleaver Essence Reaver, you'd have like a super easy time against this Nasus because of the fact that in those all-in fights, you just like would proc Essence. If you match ult with him, then the Essence Reaver procs, and you're gonna go through multiple stuns and multiple cycles of your cooldowns. That's been pretty good. So anyway, you're running back to lane, right? Alright, so right here, you should think to yourself, I don't want to auto attack these creeps, because if I do, it's going to clear the whole wave because I have a Tiamat, and it's going to push into him and take him to that golden zone. So instead, I'm going to chill, and maybe last hit with like a Q or something, whenever something gets low, kind of from far away. Like if you're trying to last hit this one, you're going to stand like over here, so that it kills this, but not that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Because, again, the whole trick against Nasus is to pull the wave so that he has long lane, and you're fine. Alright, with this, you're just giving it right back to him, you know? I guess a lot of Renekton players like Tiamat because like you can do the Tiamat cancel, right, with your W.
Yeah.
That's so overrated. Like, honestly, just get used to canceling it with your ult, because it's cooler that way. There's some matchups where you do want the Tiamat because you're fighting constantly for wave clear. Rumble's a good example of that, right? Where that champ's just gonna use his wave clear over and over, and like he's not gonna build a lot of armor first item. Wait, did you even do the Tiamat cancel? God damn it, it's gonna crash on me again. Oh dear, I'm gonna stop rewinding it. Oh dear, that's frustrating me.
Next time I'll record.
It's all good, dude. Here.
It's never crashed on me. I don't know why it crashes for other people.
It crashes when you have it open for a long amount of time and you're constantly rewatching the same clip and blah blah blah. Like that'll crash it.
Surprised they haven't fixed that yet.
Eh. It's also because like I have a bunch of things running right now, right? Like this pen overlay thing actually just eats your computer's RAM.
I did not know that.
And I have Chrome open, and that one also eats your RAM, and like, yeah. Like I have a good PC, but I don't have like the best.
I have like, it's like a I don't even know. It's just it's like an Asus laptop tablet thing.
Asus. I used to play on an Asus laptop. Those were pretty good. Those are called the ZenBook. But yeah, we'll just jump to that 9-minute mark. That's what I'm interested in watching. And then yeah, I'm gonna try to stop pausing and replaying as much, and we'll just watch it. But yeah, basically from this point forward, you see how you're just like AFK pushing the wave into him? Like this doesn't generate an advantage, right? Like you're just hoping he misses CS, right? You're not denying anything, and then like what you're doing is you're constantly going through that what do I do now? After you push it in, if you harass him under tower, if you go do something else on the map, right? And this is perfectly fine to do if you have your teleport up and there's a dragon to fight for, and there's wards for you to TP to. Does that make sense? But it's not okay to do when your teleport's down and you want to kill your lane opponent. Because all you're doing is you're just letting him scale with you. So if you're playing versus a tank or a champion that scales better than you, which is like 90% of champions compared to Renekton, you don't want to do this strategy, okay? This is just like, you're not going to be able to win the game if you do this. All you're doing is you're just trading even with farm with him, right? The only time you would want to do this is if a trade would lead to your jungle being able to dive him, okay? Which is like totally cool, but I don't think this guy has like even looked top lane, so yeah, notice how we're just kind of linger around after we push the wave in? Every time that I didn't mention this, you didn't buy a control ward, but every time you base, right, you should try to buy a control ward, come out, and then you have a control ward, and then you can do this once, and then you go out, and you place a pink right here, and you come back, and then suddenly you have a pink in the river. Anytime that this crab spawns, it's now yours. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's just gonna be the same thing. So I'm just gonna fast forward, because the only way he dies, the only way this Nasus dies is if he tries to fight you. He doesn't have to fight you, because you have a Tiamat. right? So it's just gonna be the same thing. Udyr comes, which is pretty good, right? So here's the Udyr gank we were talking about. I'm surprised this guy has the mental. I'm actually so surprised that a silver 3 Udyr player is doing a better gank than I get in Diamond right now. This is such a good gank. Like,
yeah, this shit was actually insane. He did this like twice.
no, this is such a good gank because he recognized that you got the push, right? And he knows that the wave's gonna bounce. And like the only time that these ganks actually happen in high elo are like with elite players, because elite players know how to do this. But like, I'm so surprised that this guy has the mental capacity to do this because like people don't do this in D1, D2. And you just need to chill. What the thing you cannot do right now is auto attack and Q the wave. Because if you auto attack and Q the wave, you're trolling. Okay. So this is good. Oh, that's wrong, right? This auto attack is wrong.
I was trying to make it less obvious.
It's not about it being. It's that he literally has no choice. This is the creep where it happens. Because you can dash, you can stun, and in that time he can dash in, right? So this guy just needs to chill, and you need to just dash and stun. Right here. This is a 2v2. You guys want to take? You guys win this. You guys win this super hard. You can one shot. You can not one shot.
I think I dive and I die.
You dive? How do you die? You're all the way over here.
Just
We'll watch. We'll watch. But yeah, he comes out. Don't overlay your stuns like that. Okay, you need to already pop your ult. So remember what I was talking about? Like the W Tiamat is overrated. W ult is not overrated. W ult is life. That is one of the best combos you can do on Renekton because it looks cool. What you would want to do, right, is stun a target that Udyr is not already stunning, proc your ult, and then just try to get your Qs and your Es off on whoever you can. In this case, you guys chose to burst out Nasus, which is fine. Something you could have done is you could have like baited the Yi to Q onto you, and then stun him, ult, and then like Udyr will help you burst the Yi, which is significantly easier to burst than a Nasus, right? But regardless, you don't overlap your stun with Udyr, because stuns don't overlap in this, or they do overlap and it's bad, right? They don't stack is the word I'm looking for. And then you want to just like make sure that you're getting your empowered abilities off. Like you didn't get empowered abilities off in this fight. I'm not gonna rewind it because it'll crash and I don't feel like reloading this, right? But you didn't get you used all your abilities when you were below 50 rage, your dashes and your Qs and stuff, which is bad because they're your AoE. Like here you want to prioritize your AoE abilities because there's 2 targets, right? If it was just one, then yeah, you'd prioritize your stun. And actually that's the same thing right there with you didn't get your empowered Q off, right? Because you were like at you were at enough fury so that if you just like autoed, E'd, and then Q'd, you'd actually get the empowered Q, and that might have killed him, right? An auto, an E, and a Q onto 300 HP target. So yeah. But it's just making sure that you're conscious of how much fury you're at during your combo.
Yeah, and he's at like 5 and 0 right now. It's pretty nasty.
Alright. So let's fast forward to this. We're just gonna go to the end of laning phase, which means first tower. We come back to lane. You built tab eyes.
I did it because of the Yi and Yasuo and Misfortune.
It's completely right. This is the way you want to think about it. It's what you're laning against, what you're splitting against, and what you're team fighting against. And we'll color code it yellow and blue based on tab eyes and mercs, right? Because you don't build any other type of boots as Renekton if you do your trolling. So you're laning against an auto attack champion. He technically, you can count him as mercs, like because the wither's pretty strong, right? But he's kind of half and half, right? So we'll do half and half. Most of the time you're gonna want tab eyes versus Nasus though. And then what you're splitting against is when this game gets into mid game, you're going to be splitting against a Yasuo, because Yasuo often responds to side waves, right? You're going to be splitting against Nasus. Like we said, he's kind of half and half. And then you're going to be splitting against a Yi, because if you're ever 1v1ing this Nasus, you sure as hell know that that Yi's going to show up, right? Like, so that Yi is also a split push champion. He's going to be attacking towers and stuff, right? So, it's like, he shows up there. And then when you team fight, it's versus everything. It's the Nasus, which we said is half and half. It's the Yi, it's the Yasuo, it's the Misfortune, and then it's the Nami, who's Mertreads again, right? So like this is an overwhelming ninja tabi game where we have like 3 halves, so 1.5, right? Uh, and then 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, 6.5 versus 2.5. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So like 6.5 versus 2.5. Definitely want the ninja tabi every time, right? Like that's overwhelming. There's going to be games where it's like pretty split down the middle, and then you just decide it based on who's more fed. Okay. But yeah, this game definitely want ninja tabis. It's totally an okay choice to have like this early because of the fact that you identify that like it's gonna help you out. But I would not get it. It's mostly just the Tiamat slowing your Black Cleaver. So like slowing your Black Cleaver even more by getting ninja tabi, in my opinion, is wrong. Because like once you get Black Cleaver, it's night and day how much damage you do. Yeah, we'll push that. Yeah, you'll notice you take a lot less damage from him, right? Typically you want to time your ninja tabi with your opponent's like first like spike. In this case it's his sheen, but if you're snowballing on him, then you can just keep building damage and it's fine. Right? So you actually end up getting a pretty big CS lead so far. That was mostly from that one crash that you did after you killed him. So somehow you actually just managed to turn this, and I guess he's just really bad at CSing under tower. Because he's gonna miss that one. Oh no, he didn't. Yeah, where's he missing all these? Oh, right there. Okay, yeah, no, he's just bad at CSing under tower. Then he's BMing us, whatever. And so right, we mentioned earlier that like when our teleports up, right, it's totally fine to do what you're about to do, which is to push in and then just be ready for teleports, right? Whether that's bot, there's no dragon up, but like with this crab being up, it's totally fine to push this in, go down here, do the crab, come back up, and then like you do this enough, you get crab control. You can just you can force the Baron. I'm not Baron, the Herald, right? And then like that could be a pretty good advantage for your team, but that's like after the 10-minute mark, okay?
Okay.
So we see you on the map. We go for a trade. That's all good. You're going for the crab, right? And so it's just making sure that you escort the wave fully under tower whenever you're going for this, right? Right? You have to escort this, right? You have to like push it all the way in. And so I think you actually just backed off from the wave. Like right here, you know how you see how you're not with it the whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just need to you walk up, trade on him, keep autoing him until he goes under his tower, because like this should not be a this is not acceptable as far as how deep it is, because then none of these creeps are gonna actually get tower aggro. Right, so this is gonna keep the wave here, again that golden zone that we were talking about, and then this ends up actually costing you CS, because when it stays here, their creeps are gonna end up taking damage, and you can't last hit this as easily, and so it ends up pushing back to you with less farm. But we're on the crab now. This is fine. All right, you go in. You'll notice that like none of your damage sticks, right? Like even though you're doing all these trades, like he just has to queue a few creeps and then he heals up. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he just has passive lifesteal.
Yeah, and he has this Sheen, which is the big sustain part. So you literally should only be looking for a long lane all in or a gank from your jungler, both of which require you to pull the wave all the way over here, okay? So Nudir does the same gank twice. And again, this is a really good gank to do. Kudos to him for knowing how to do this. This is Udyr one trick material, dude. He's got the Spirit Guard Udyr, he's playing Udyr completely right, and he's still in silver. Oh yeah. Oh, that's really early actually. Okay, I roll with that. It's the same thing as last time, right? Make sure that you ult whenever you go for the W, because it guarantees that your next ability is empowered, right? Because whenever you ult, you get Fury. Whenever you W, you get 20 Fury. 20 Fury, 20 Fury, and then like your next ability is definitely empowered.
Oh yeah, because you get like
you get some when you dash, you get some Fury per second. It's just like such a beautiful combo to do, and it looks cool. So yeah. And I haven't been able to talk to you about like how to properly do a lawn trade as Renekton because it hasn't come up because you haven't been over here and pushing him in yet, like with your wave pushing. But what it boils down to is you basically just weave an auto attack between all your abilities. Um, but like so far you've just been doing short bursty trades, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah, we got tower, and so that's the end of lane phase, right? So this video slash coaching session has already gone on like way longer than it normally should, but that's because there's been stuff to talk about, and that's fine. But I don't. It's getting pretty late here, so I think this is a good time to cut it off, right? It's like we've successfully transitioned from the early, and then the early mid game, and now we're officially in mid game, right? And you're a mid game bruiser with an advantage over your lane opponent, and we need to transition that into a mid to late game lead slash closing out the game, right? So like just to compare, right? Gold, right? You are 1,000 gold ahead, right? And then you're up a level. With that much of an advantage, you should be able to close out a game and win. And I do believe you win this game, right? So
Yeah,
like,
I
that's
do.
pretty good.
This is a clip from that game.
Cool. And then well, I'll check it out after I turn off the video. But so like out of 10, how well do you think you did, based on the stuff that we talked about? Or
Um,
out of 5 stars, how many stars do you get? Keep in mind, yeah,
I'm gonna say like 2.5.
2.5 is like legit 50%,
Yeah,
right? So
I,
okay.
like my laning could have been better, but I feel like in the end of the game, I closed it out and I spread my advantage to other lanes
No,
like I should.
I'm just talking about your early mid game.
Oh, my early,
Yeah,
probably like 2 stars.
2 stars, you think? Because like
Yeah,
you got tower, which is like a star. You got a CS advantage, which is like a star. You killed your lane opponent, which is like a star. Uh, you died, so I can't give you anything for like not dying. And then
yeah,
you kind of used your summoner spells, in my opinion, incorrectly. I don't think you even flashed ever. Oh no, you flashed away from tower, which is pretty bad, and then you teleported because you lost, which is pretty bad. So like, yeah, I think I'll just give you 3 stars, right? So this was like a 3-star performance
yeah.
of like
Okay,
laning
that's
as
reasonable.
Renekton. I think, yeah, I think that's perfectly reasonable, right? And so if you want to climb, you need consistent 4 to 5 star performances, right? Like I would say that technically you didn't leverage enough of a lead to expect to win the game off of how well you played, right? Like 1,000 gold and first tower is pretty good, but it's not enough to win most of your games consistently, right? Like I could expect first tower to fall earlier than 15 minutes in most games if they're like you said earlier, like if this bot lane was getting crushed, like if their bot lane was crushing your bot lane, like this tower is gonna fall like 12 minutes or 10 minutes, right?
Yeah,
And so like that'd be a star that gets taken away from you because you didn't get the first tower, right? And then like if they got more than like 1,000 gold lead, which is totally super easy to do, right? Like 1,000 gold isn't actually all that much. Typically, you want to see towards 1,500 because that's like BF swords, phages, stuff like that, right? Um, that's the type of gold lead that you want. And so like it's just like there's definitely room to grow is what I'm trying to say. So like yeah, this was like a 3-star Renekton performance, and you should aim to have those 5 stars, which means using your summoner spells to snowball your advantage, not dying, and then just like yeah. So always try to like think about like how to measure the how well you played out a certain lane phase, okay? And
okay,
then as hopefully as you play more Renekton, we're going to be able to like this is something you can do by yourself. It's just like keep track of how many stars you're getting, I guess, per like game. Like measure like oh did I actually come out of lane with a golden EXP advantage, stuff like that. Okay,
okay.
cool. So yeah, that's all I have for today. I'm gonna stop the recording now.